Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I still remember the smell of motor oil and dust in the garage that night. I'd gone out there to grab a wrench because the kitchen cabinet hinge had been squeaking for weeks, and I figured I'd finally fix it. Nothing exciting, just one of those ordinary little chores you do without thinking. The garage door was cracked open a bit because I'd been running the dryer earlier, so it wasn't silent. I could hear the faint hum of cicadas outside, the kind of summer night background noise you barely notice. And then I heard her voice. At first I thought she was on the phone with a friend. My wife Anna always had this animated tone when she gossiped. But within 2 sentences, the words she spoke froze me in place. "He's just a phase," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Once the house is mine, I'm done." I blinked, my hand frozen over the wrench drawer. My brain scrambled for a logical explanation. She couldn't possibly mean me, her husband, for nearly 8 years. Could she? Then another voice cut in, one I recognized instantly, her sister, Claire. "Well, you've been patient. He's too nice to see it coming. You'll have the title in your name soon, and then you can just move on. You've already lined up someone better, right?" Anna laughed. I felt something inside me go still. It wasn't rage, at least not yet. It was a kind of cold clarity. I realized that this wasn't an impulsive betrayal. This was planned, discussed, a scheme between 2 people who clearly saw me not as a partner, but as a stepping stone. I stood there in the shadows, gripping the edge of the workbench until my knuckles hurt. It would have been easy to storm in there, demand answers, yell until the neighbors heard. But instead, I took a slow breath. I thought about the life we'd built. Or rather, the life I thought we'd built. The mortgage I'd been paying down, the repairs I'd done on weekends, the nights I'd stayed up working overtime so we could take that trip to Europe she'd always dreamed about. All of it suddenly felt like a chessboard, and I was the fool who didn't realize I'd been cornered 3 moves ago. So I did something they never would have expected. I grabbed my keys, walked into the kitchen where they were sitting with glasses of wine, and smiled like nothing was wrong. "I'm going to run to the store, grab some groceries," I said casually. Anna barely looked up from her phone. "Milk, eggs, and maybe some wine," she said dismissively. Claire didn't even glance at me. I nodded, walked out the front door and got into my truck, but I didn't go to the store. I didn't even stay in the city. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I was 300 miles away, parked in a motel lot, staring at the ceiling as the reality of what I'd overheard sank in. That night in the garage had flipped a switch in me. All the little signs I'd ignored over the years came rushing back. Her growing disinterest in spending time together. The way she always had work events that went late. The fact that she never wanted to merge finances fully. I'd been too trusting. And she had been counting on that. I called my best friend Ryan, who lived out of state. He'd always told me, "Man, if you ever need to disappear for a while, my guest room's yours." I'd laughed it off back then. But now I asked him if he meant it. He didn't even hesitate. "Get here," he said. Over the next week, I began methodically taking back control of my life. I contacted a lawyer, someone I knew Anna had never met. I got copies of every document with my name on it. I froze joint accounts. I rerouted my paycheck to a separate bank, and I didn't call her, I didn't text. I left her in complete silence. From what my lawyer told me, she was likely blindsided. She'd come home that night expecting me to walk through the door with a grocery bag, none the wiser. Instead, she found an empty driveway, my clothes gone from the closet, my toothbrush missing, and the safe in our bedroom cleaned out of all the important papers. I could imagine her confusion, her attempts to reach me, but I didn't look. I didn't answer. Instead, I spent my evenings at Ryan's place making plans. Quietly. Carefully. If she thought she could play the long game, I was about to show her I could play it better. 2 weeks later, my lawyer sent me a file that made my jaw clench. Property records. Text messages pulled from her cloud backup. Evidence that she'd already been in contact with a realtor, discussing the house as if it were solely hers. And then there were the messages with someone better. I didn't recognize the man's name. But from the tone, it was clear she'd been seeing him for months, maybe longer. There were no explicit details in the texts, thankfully because I didn't need those images in my head. But the implication was enough. She'd been juggling her relationship with me while laying the groundwork to move in with this guy once she secured the house. My house. That was the moment the cold clarity in me solidified into resolve. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make sure that when she realized what she'd lost, it would be too late to get any of it back. I filed paperwork that same week, not just for divorce, but for the protection of every asset I'd ever worked for. My lawyer assured me that given the evidence, the court would see through her intentions. And still, I didn't say a word to her. Weeks passed. I stayed off social media, kept my phone on silent, and lived as if she no longer existed. It was liberating in a way I hadn't expected. Then, about 2 months after that night in the garage, my phone lit up one afternoon. 86 missed calls. Dozens of frantic texts. It was the first time I'd let myself even glance at her name on my screen since leaving. And though I didn't open a single message, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever plan she'd been so confident about had just blown up in her face. And that was only the beginning. When I saw her name flashing on my phone for the 86th time, I didn't answer. I didn't even open the texts. My lawyer had told me something early on that stuck with me. Silence is more powerful than anger. Anger gives the other person something to push against. Silence leaves them swinging at the air. Still, I couldn't help wondering what had happened. Anna was the type of person who only called repeatedly if she wanted something badly enough. She didn't do desperation. Not publicly, anyway. That meant something had gone seriously wrong for her. I didn't have to wonder for long. The next morning, my lawyer called. He sounded almost amused. "She's already trying to get ahead of this," he said. Her attorney reached out, apparently unaware of the evidence we've got. They're suggesting a mutual split and a fair division of assets. I laughed. Actually laughed at the idea. A mutual split would have been nice 8 weeks ago before I found out she was planning to gut me financially and dump me like yesterday's trash. Now I wanted everything locked down tight so there was no room for her to slither through. My lawyer continued. From what I gather, she's no longer with the man she was seeing, and he paused. There may be another complication in her personal life that's motivating her urgency. I didn't press for details then. I wanted to hear it from her, if I ever did at all, but I wasn't going to make it easy for her. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. First a dozen a day, then more. The texts ranged from short, "Call me," to long paragraphs begging for a chance to explain. Then came the guilt trips, "We can fix this, we were married, remember?" Followed by the blame, "You're overreacting. You're not innocent either." Classic Anna. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on solidifying the new life I'd started building at Ryan's. I picked up some contract work that paid surprisingly well. I opened a new savings account in a completely different bank from any we'd used. I even started seeing a therapist, which was something I'd put off for years. The sessions helped me untangle more than just the mess with Anna. They made me realize how long I'd been putting my own needs second. A couple of weeks later, the complication my lawyer hinted at finally became clear. I was sitting in Ryan's kitchen drinking coffee when my phone buzzed with a message. Not from Anna, but from an unfamiliar number. "Hey, I don't know you, but I think we should talk. It's about Anna." It was signed with a name I didn't recognize, Mark. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something about the tone caught my attention. I replied cautiously, "What about her?" The response came quickly. "She's been seeing my brother for months. He just dumped her. She told him you'd already left and she was going to get the house. Now she's trying to get back with you. Thought you should know she's telling people you might reconcile." I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling that cold clarity return. She wasn't just trying to get me back. She was trying to manipulate the optics so that if she got anything from me, she could spin it as a mutual decision to part ways. Keep her image intact. The thing was, I wasn't interested in optics. I was interested in facts, and the facts were on my side. I thanked Mark and asked if he had any proof of their relationship. He didn't hesitate, sent me a series of screenshots from his brother's phone showing text conversations with Anna. They weren't explicit, but they left no doubt about the nature of their connection. The last few messages were the most telling. "Anna, this isn't fair. I left my husband for you." Her lover. "You said the house would be yours soon." Now it's not, and I don't want the drama. Anna. So that's it? Her lover. Yeah, good luck. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He was thrilled. This makes your case airtight, he said. We'll make sure she doesn't walk away with more than she's entitled to. And from what I see here, that's not much. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. With the evidence we had, her side didn't have much leverage. Her attorney tried to argue for spousal support, but the court wasn't buying it. The house stayed in my name. The joint savings we had left was split evenly, but since I'd already moved most of my own funds out, she didn't touch the bulk of my money. Through it all, I never spoke to her directly. Everything went through the lawyers. I didn't want to hear her voice, not the pleading, not the anger, not the excuses. By the time the paperwork was finalized, I'd been gone for almost 3 months. My life felt completely different. I was healthier. I was sleeping through the night. I'd even started dating, not seriously, but enough to remind myself what mutual respect felt like. And then one day, out of nowhere, I saw her in person. I was walking into a coffee shop downtown, and she was walking out. She looked smaller somehow, tired. There was a flash of surprise in her eyes, then something that might have been regret. You're a hard man to find, she said, forcing a smile. I nodded once. That's the point. She glanced around as if the sidewalk might be listening. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't respond. She went on. Things didn't work out how I thought they would. I made mistakes. But we had something. I cut her off. No, I had something. You had a plan. Big difference. For a second, the mask slipped. She looked like she might argue, but instead she just nodded. Okay. I guess that's it then. That's it. I walked past her into the coffee shop without looking back. Later that day, my phone buzzed with another unfamiliar number. It was a text from Claire, her sister. You'll regret this. She's still family. I deleted it without replying. Because here's the thing, I didn't regret any of it. Walking away without a scene, without giving her the satisfaction of my anger, that was the real revenge. She'd wanted a reaction, some proof that she'd mattered enough to shatter me. Instead, she got silence and the knowledge that I was living better without her. And judging by those 86 missed calls 2 months ago, that knowledge hurt her more than anything I could have said. When you disappear from someone's life as completely as I did from Anna's, you start to wonder how long it will take before they run out of excuses and start facing reality. For me, part 3 of this whole mess began the morning I found out why she'd been calling 86 times in a row. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't a sudden change of heart. It was desperation. And it was ugly. The answer came from the most unexpected source. Our old neighbor, Martha. She was one of those people who knew everything that happened on our street before the people involved did. Retired, friendly, always trimming her rose bushes, and apparently keeping tabs on my ex-wife without even trying. I ran into her at the hardware store while I was picking up paint for the guest room in my new place. She spotted me first, called my name, and came over with a look that was equal parts curiosity and excitement. Well, you look better than I've seen you in years, she said, giving me a once-over. I suppose I can see why she's been moping around the neighborhood like a wet cat. I laughed. She's not exactly one for moping. Martha shook her head. You haven't heard then? I raised an eyebrow. Heard what? She leaned in, lowering her voice as though the screwdrivers and paint cans might be eavesdropping. That man she was seeing, her boss, kicked her out of his apartment. Turns out his wife found out everything and filed for divorce. And she's keeping the apartment. So now your ex is, well, she's living back with her mother. I blinked, letting that sink in. She moved in with her mom? Oh, yes. And between you and me, her mother is not happy about it. I think she thought Anna was going to come out of this with a house and maybe a ring. Instead, she's got debt. Debt? I asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. Martha nodded. Apparently, she's got some credit card balances from all those little vacations she took last year. And without the boss in the picture, I don't think she has anyone to cover it. That conversation replayed in my head for days. I didn't feel pity, not even a little. But I did feel a certain grim satisfaction. She had gambled everything on the idea that she could manipulate me into staying just long enough to secure the house and whatever else she could squeeze out of me. And now she was back where she started, only worse off. I didn't plan on engaging with her at all, until I got a letter in the mail a week later. It was from her attorney claiming she was entitled to a reassessment of asset division due to changes in financial circumstances. My lawyer took one look at it and laughed out loud. "This is grasping at straws," he said. "She's hoping you'll panic and settle to avoid a fight." We didn't panic. We responded with a very polite but firm no, and attached every piece of evidence we had from her affair, her own words about her intentions and the fact that she had already signed away any claim to my property. That letter ended the conversation instantly. But Anna didn't give up that easily. First came the friendly texts, as though nothing had happened. "Hey, I heard about your new place. Maybe I could come see it." I ignored them. Then came the guilt trips. "We were together a long time. You really can just walk away?" Ignored those too. And then, the real reason for her calls came out. One evening, as I was finishing up some work at home, my phone lit up with a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I listened to the message, and it was her voice, but shaking in a way I'd never heard before. "I know you don't want to hear from me," she began, "but please, I need your help. I'm behind on some payments and I don't have anywhere else to turn. Just, please call me. I'm not asking to get back together. I just need a loan. $20,000. I sat there for a moment staring at the wall. $20,000. She might as well have asked for the moon. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called Mark, the brother of her last lover, the one who'd sent me the screenshots. I told him about the message, and he actually chuckled. "Yeah, I'm not surprised. She's been trying to get money from anyone who'll listen. My brother said she even tried to get his wife to help her before their divorce was final. It's pathetic." That was the word for it, pathetic. 2 days later, the text from her turned nasty. "You think you're better than me now? Enjoy your empty life. You'll regret this." And then the one that made me laugh. "We could still have what we had." At that point, it was almost too easy. I didn't respond to any of it. I just let her keep talking to a brick wall. And with every unanswered call, every ignored message, I knew she was starting to realize the truth. I wasn't coming back. The funny thing is, it wasn't even about revenge anymore. Sure, there was satisfaction in knowing she had burned her own bridge and was now stranded on the other side. But more than that, it was about peace, finally being free of the constant games, the drama, the second-guessing. A few months after that, I heard she'd moved out of her mother's place and into a tiny rental across town. No job, no relationship, no house. Just her and whatever she could carry. Me? I had a solid job, a home that was mine alone, a few close friends I trusted, and, maybe most importantly, a clear head. People think revenge is about making the other person hurt as much as you did, but the real revenge, it's moving on so completely that they become irrelevant. And that's exactly what I did. About a year after I'd last heard her voice, I thought the entire saga was behind me. Life had settled into something quiet but good. I'd made new friends, traveled a little, even started dating again, slowly, cautiously. Anna was just a ghost in the rearview mirror. Then one afternoon, out of the blue, I got a message from an unknown number. It wasn't her, but it was about her. "Hi, you don't know me," it read. "I'm a reporter working on a piece about a local property fraud case. I believe you may have some history with one of the people involved. Anna, her last name. Could you give me a call?" Curiosity got the better of me, so I called. The reporter told me Anna had been caught up in a scam, this time as the scammer. Apparently, she'd been helping people apply for home loans they couldn't afford, falsifying documents for a cut of the money. When the deals went south, the buyers turned her in to save themselves. And here was the kicker. She'd been doing it under the table for her new boyfriend, a guy who, shockingly, was also married. When his wife found out, she not only kicked him out, but also tipped off the police. The reporter wanted to know if I could share any background on Anna's patterns of behavior. I didn't give them much, just enough to confirm that her habit of playing people against each other wasn't new. But as I hung up, I realized something. This wasn't my problem anymore. It never would be again. A month later, I heard she'd taken a plea deal, probation and community service. No jail time, but a permanent mark on her record. She'd have a hard time finding work for years. One evening, while I was sitting on my porch enjoying a beer, I got one last text from her number, just 4 words. "I miss you, please." I stared at it for a long second, then deleted it without replying. No anger, no satisfaction, just nothing. Because the truth was, she didn't miss me. She missed the safety net I used to be, and that net was gone. I'd spent too long thinking revenge was about the perfect moment, the big reveal, the killer line that left them stunned. But real revenge, it's walking away so completely that their chaos can't touch you anymore. I put my phone down, leaned back in my chair, and watched the sun dip below the trees. Somewhere out there, Anna was dealing with the fallout of every bad choice she'd ever made. And me? I was free. Completely. Irrevocably free.